Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, as you know, Yankees GM Brian Cashman had a very busy trade deadline this year. You probably already know some of the players that are coming in and who's going out, but maybe just don't know the full details. So we'll kind of review all those deals again, kind of do a deep dive, full dossier on all these players, again, who the Yankees are getting, who they shipped out, and I kind of give my opinion on whether I think the Yankees got a good deal or not, was the trade necessary or not. So we'll get into all that. But before we do, if you haven't done it already, there's an audio version of the show. So wherever you get your favorite podcasts, search Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe, get notified. And again, it's additional content. It's content that you're not available to see here on YouTube or on TV. It's only for podcast subscribers. So if you want to be part of the cool crowd, make sure you subscribe. Well, if you remember the last trade deadline, Cashman had a very successful 2021, bringing in Anthony Rizzo, who was kind of known as even talking about the time. And you know, all the rumors were about Gallo, who eventually came in. Now we'll get into that whole deal. But if you just look at last year, bringing in Rizzo, bringing in Gallo, who we didn't think would be that bad at the time, and of course Clay Holmes, kind of an unknown reliever from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and became, would eventually become the Yankees' ace this season. So last offseason, very good for Cashman, and overall this offseason, very good as well, maybe even a little bit better. So now the big need for the Yankees, of course, we all knew going in was definitely, I ranked bullpen arms #1, so Cashman did address that. But of course, there was some big starters floating around out there. Luis Castillo, now unfortunately he would end up going to the Seattle Mariners, and of course beating us in his first start, ironically enough. But there was a couple other starters out there, such as Frankie Montas, floating around. Now, I wasn't really high on him just because you hear some of the names that, the Yankees have to give up in order to get him. But again, the Yankees were able to secure him, and we'll get into that a little bit. Now, the name I actually wanted to, that I was throwing out there, was Madison Bumgarner, just for the fact that, he has a ton of postseason experience. He has 2 more years left on his deal, so if it's just about money, the Arizona Diamondbacks aren't going to be asking for a lot of prospects in return, so you can almost really trade him for very little. And of course, he's a left-hander, has the experience, and he's just in a really terrible situation there in Arizona. I mean, the team is absolutely terrible, and for a veteran pitcher like that, it must be torture for him. I think this coming here for the Yankees, I think would breathe some new life into him, and I thought, they'd be very good. And I thought that was the move to make, but it turns out Cashman was able to pull a deal off. Now, once you look at what the Yankees gave up for this, then I'm saying, hey, it's a great deal. Now, so the Yankees get Montas from the Oakland A's. Now, this deal also includes Lou Trevino. Now, remember, we have Jose Trevino, the catcher, but this is Lou Trevino. So the spelling's actually the same. There's different pronunciation. Now, if you look at Montas coming in, 3-9, but you don't look at the record because Oakland's terrible. But an ERA at the time, a little over 3. Again, he was one of the prize starters out there on the trade market. And Lou Trevino, now, you look at his stats this season, not too good, 1-6 with an ERA over 5. You say, why are you bringing this guy in? But he does have some saves on the season. Now, last year, he was actually much better for the A's. ERA a little over 3 and had 22 saves for the season. So the Yankees figured that Trevino, a bullpen arm, which they definitely need, especially with King going down and Loizaga and Chapman kind of been iffy a little bit. So a good move for them. So they figured maybe, similar to what they found in Clay Holmes last season, they found maybe they see something in Trevino. It's like, hey, if we could just get him in here, get him with Matt Blake, maybe we could straighten him out and he could return to form like he was last year. So again, the Yankees not only get to start on Montas, but also get Trevino, a bullpen arm, which they need. Now, what the Yankees gave up was relatively little. Really, the big name in the whole deal is J.P. Sears. Now, we've seen Sears come up here for the season for the Yankees, had 2 starts, somewhat early on, and won both those games. They had a couple bullpen appearances and was again overall for the Yankees, but you wouldn't consider Sears like one of the Yankees' valuable blue chip prospects, where like you can't let this guy go. So if we only have to give up Sears, which again it was a part of a package, also included Cooper Brown, second baseman prospect, Luis Medina, who might saw for a cup of coffee last season, and Ken Waldichuk, another pitching prospect. So 1 starting pitching prospect, perhaps 2 relief pitching prospects, and 1 second base prospect. But again, none of these players really valued that highly. And it's just the fact that maybe we saw J.P. Sears, maybe fall in love with him in the short amount of time he was here. But again, he's not someone like you say, you can't let this guy go. So for what Cashman gave up to get a top line, one of the once Castillo was off the table, Montas became the top starting pitcher on the trade market, and for Cashman to secure him for just that package, that's a really good job by Cashman. So in that sense, I would say it's a good deal. And Montas not only is he available, obviously the rest of this season, but he's signed through next year as well. So it's not just a couple of months rental. You're going to get another full season from Adam next year. And Trevino, he's not only signed through 2023, but also 2024. So now, again, if the Yankees are able to turn him around, you now have a valuable arm not only for this season, not only for 2023, but also through 24 as well. So if this all works out for the Yankees, again, an A+ type of deal. And JP Sears, okay, we've seen him, make a couple of starts here. He's like a, 5-inning pitcher and okay, but again, nothing where, if you need a top line starter, if really the big name that was Sears, you're looking at just to give him up, I think it was a really good deal for the Yankees. So we'll see, see what happens. Now, Montas wasn't available right away for the Yankees. Had a bereavement, so he was away from the team a little bit. Now, ironically, in his first start for the Yankees with the Cardinals, wasn't good at all. Got an early, but got rocked in a couple of innings. But at that point, you really can't blame him too much. He was away for a while, not on his usual throw dates, and you kind of go away from the, not playing baseball activities for a while. Then you get thrown into a game against the Cardinals, a big interleague game. So I'm not going to, put too much stock in that. But overall, now you see the situation with the Yankee rotation. You would definitely, at this point, maybe value Montas. Maybe you see him as the Yankees' second, starter. So you have Cole, Montas, Nestor Cortez, Domingo Herman, and Taillon a little bit. So that's kind of going to be your 5 for the rest of the season. Now, Sevy's due back because right now he's on the 60-day DL. He should be ready sometime September, and we'll see what we do with him. At that point, either Sevy's going to take a rotation spot from Herman or Taillon, or maybe, again, what I threw out there is maybe use Sevy as they've used Sevy in the past, coming back from injury, out of the bullpen. We'll see how that shakes off. But again, the main deal, the Yankee getting a top-line starting pitcher. I'm not saying he's old world and all great, but again, good pickup by Cashman and getting him for relatively cheap. Now, before the Montas deal went down, the Yankees drew first blood, bringing in a bullpen reliever, making a trade with the Chicago Cubs. Now, the name I was throwing out there before the trade deadline was David Robinson. Again, the former Yankee came up through the system and then came back into the 3-player deal a couple of seasons ago. Now, he kind of resurrected his career a little bit with the Cubs and was having a good season. 37 years old, a little old in the tooth there, but of course, as you know, he could handle New York, so I thought that would be a good move to make. But no, Cashman looked elsewhere, brings in Scott Efros, who's a good player for the Cubs. So now he's a bit of a sidewinder. Actually, back in 2019, he converted to throwing a sidewinder. So he kind of a little bit of that Darren O'Day who Yankees had last season, but unfortunately got hurt. So you look at him as someone to come in the pen to get a big out against a righty. I don't say he would exactly replace what Michael King was able to bring to the Yankees, because King could get out both lefties and righties. Efros is more of your righty specialist, but nevertheless, good deal from Cashman. Gave up this a prospect, Hayden Wesneski. Now, he was rated the number 7 prospect in the Yankee system, but again, nothing mind-blowing where you lose that guy is really going to bite you in the backside. Right now, again, the Yankees do need the bullpen help, so again, I think it's a good deal for Cashman. And Scott Efros, only 28 years old, so under 30, and he's under control through 2027. So this is someone, again, as long as he's not terrible, he could be in your system for a while. Now, he has logged a lot of innings, at the time of the deal, had appeared in 50 games, but a low ERA, around 2.5. So at the time, this would be a good pickup for Cashman. And, it just bolsters that bullpen, which, they needed to bring arms in. Of course, they lost Green much earlier this season, lose Michael King, up and down a little bit with Chapman a little while ago. Now I got to hand it to Chapman a little bit, and I've been beating him up lately. He has stabilized himself a little bit, so you feel a little bit more comfortable with him now. Looks like, he's really taken out to that 7th to 8th inning role, where just, a couple of weeks ago he looked very uncomfortable there. So he's looking to stabilize himself. You still like to see a little bit, Lil Wise could be the same a little bit, but definitely the Yankees needed the bullpen arm help. And remember, just down the road, possibly might see Zach Britton come back at some point this season too, so that'd be another weapon. But until those players are back, you can't really put any bets on that. So good move by Cashman. So now again, not only have Trevino from the deal that included Montas, but also bringing in Scott Efros again just to bolster that bullpen. Now, a lot of Yankee fans were a little upset that, even though Cashman brought in a lot of talent, shipped out Jordan Montgomery for, a player to the Cardinals who right now is in a boot with dealing with plantar fasciitis. So we'll get into the whole of that one, because I would think of all the deals, even though, obviously Montgomery's not the big Yankee name, but of course I think that was the most intriguing one to analyze, because there's so pros and cons on both sides of that. So we'll get into the issue. But obviously we have to get into the whole Joey Gallo situation, which we all knew the writing was on the wall that he was going to be on his way out. So no one was shocked when he ended up getting traded to the Dodgers, especially when the Yankees brought in Adam Benintendi basically the replacement, and even Gallo pretty much giving quotes that he's out of town even before the deal even happened. So now Cashman, to his credit, actually got a pretty decent piece back. I mean, I think almost to a point where you think the Yankees just might outright DFA him. But trade him to the Los Angeles Dodgers, which I think that's a good situation for Gallo, for their number 15th prospect in their system. So to get that back for Joey Gallo, he was hitting below 200. I think that's a pretty good deal for Cashman. Gentleman is a pitcher by the name of Clayton Beeter. Now he's nothing impressive right now in Double-A. In 18 games, including 16 of those starts right now. Has an 0-3 record, an ERA 5.75, kind of high there with only 88 strikeouts. So if you look at what the work he's doing right now in Double-A, not that impressive. But does he get anything back for him for Cashman? I think that's a pretty good move there. And for Joey Gallo, I think the whole Los Angeles thing, is kind of laid back town. I know the Dodgers are all in going for a championship, and it's a championship type of club. But I think it's good for him just to go out there, be under the radar, just be part of one of the guys. And, obviously I don't think the fans and the media are going to be as tough on him as they kind of were here. So I just think it's a good place for Gallo, and then for Cashman to get anything back for him, this pitcher. Again, he's a right-hander, 23 years old. Now, he did have Tommy John surgery back in 2017, as well as a follow-up procedure in 2019. And of course, 2020, a lot of minor leaguers, did not get a lot of work in just with the whole shutdown in COVID. So, for him to be not really having a great Double-A record this season, I wouldn't put too much stock in it. But again, to Cashman to get anything for this, for Joey Gallo at that point, I think it was a win there. Now, I'm sure you heard the whole controversy that, after the Gallo deal went on, Michael Kay, before the broadcast, for the following game in the Yes booth, kind of gave his, his take on it. And pretty much, said that, Gallo pretty much, had an opportunity, but in the, the second half of last season when they brought him in, and the first half of this season when he was here, he was as bad. He didn't get the job done. Again, not even a 200 hitter, and he'll bop a home run once in a while, play great defense, and, wasn't really terrible in the clubhouse. And, even though he had a lot of pressure under him, never really snapped and said the wrong thing in that regard. But again, he had really no one to blame for himself. And then really what Kay was referencing was, I guess, an article in NJ.com where Gallo kind of said that, again, pretty much saying he's going to be out of town before the trade even happened, and say, well, he doesn't leave his apartment because then he's afraid of people are going to, fans in the street are going to say negative things to him and kind of woe is me a little bit. Now, this guy, and which for the most part, I think Kay wasn't really out of line there, but it turns out that Phil Hughes caught, I guess, wind of that broadcast and kind of put his 2 cents in and felt Kay was being a little aggressive with him with actually providing an actual quote from Joey Gallo. Well, in Kay's defense, he mentioned that, look, I'm just quickly doing a broadcast here. I don't have, I got a short amount of time before the game starts. I don't have time to reference the whole quote and get into all the details. But he kind of could put Phil Hughes back in his place a little bit. And then Phil Hughes was like, oh, yeah, well, it's tough to be a ball player, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of floated away there. Now, I think the problem there is that, so you have 2 Michael Kays. You have the Michael Kay used to broadcasting the Yes games, who's kind of supposed to be a little bit vanilla and objective, and then of course you have the Michael Kay from the Michael Kay Show, who's going to be more opinionated. And I think the problem is, but maybe threw people off a little bit, you had the opinionated Michael Kay with his ESPN show hat on in the Yes booth. So it's kind of like a bit of a duck out of water there, so maybe that's why it rubbed people the wrong way. But overall, I don't think Kay said anything crazy like that. And if you look at Joey Gallo, meant relatively, yeah, I mean, you saw some smattering of boos, but I mean, other Yankee players in the past have gotten much, much worse than what really he deserved. I mean, remember when Jason Giambi first came here in that first month and a half, he was terrible. He got showered with boos. Giancarlo Stanton at times has been booed quite heavily, including even this season. Just sometimes when he seemed lethargic. You remember the whole Chuck Knobloch situation when he couldn't throw to first base anymore. Remember the first year of Roger Clemens in '99 when he had the bad hamstring and it was kind of not really the Roger Clemens we thought we were getting. So we've seen these guys get booed. Randy Johnson really getting booed, especially is that Game 3 against the Angels in the divisional series. Basically couldn't get out of the third inning or whatever. He got booed off the mound. So we've seen other players got booed a lot more than what Joey Gallo got, and probably what Joey Gallo got less than what he deserved. So I mean, for Gallo to slip out of here the way he did, you really almost got away unscathed. And I think what helped him was that obviously the Yankees off, the first half before the trade deadline, off to such a great start that, yeah, Gallo was doing bad, but he could have got hammered much more if this team was like, 500 or struggling or could be, really neck and neck with the Toronto Blue Jays. The fact the Yankees were way out ahead for most of the season, I think, gave Gallo a lot of help there. So for him just to complain that fans would give him guff in the street like that, whatever, that's the way it is. But again, so I don't think Kay was wrong in the situation. He didn't say anything out of line. I think Phil uses little overreacted to Kay's response on that one. Kay was very fair down the line there. It's just the fact that he was the ESPN Michael Kay in the Yes booth. Maybe that kind of rubbed people the wrong way a little bit. Kind of the different. But other than that, Kay did nothing wrong. So the big trade, as mentioned before, that maybe not big in terms of names, but kind of the most controversial was the Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader to the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, you look at the situation with, Jordan Montgomery, because right before the deal happened, in July, he was, again, the Yankees were 0-6 in games he started. So, the whole book on him earlier this season with the Yankees giving no run support. Then he had a little spurt there where the Yankees were supporting him. He was getting some wins, and then he kind of fell back a little bit in the doldrums. Yeah, and some of those, losses in those games in July were his fault. Some weren't his fault. But overall, I guess at the time, the Yankees felt maybe that was the right time to do the deal. So they shipped him out for Harrison Bader. Now, Bader, again, he's considered one of the best center fielders in the game. The only problem is he's in a boot. So he's dealing with a plantar fasciitis situation. Now, he claims he'll be available before the year ends. But again, we don't know exactly when it's going to be. And if he is in there, obviously, even if you kind of heal technically, is he going to be as effective as, the Yankees are hoping he was getting? Now, again, statistically, again, over his career, he has 38 plus, defensive saves, again, attributed to him in center field. Now, this season, those numbers were way down early on, but because probably he was dealing with the foot injury before they finally put him in the boot. But again, once he's in there and healthy and at full sprint, he is considered one of the best center fielders in the game. Now, if you look at the Yankees kind of situation now, why really make this deal at this time? Now, you can look at a couple of things. Again, it's really more for the postseason. The Yankees kind of lining things up for the postseason. Well, if you look at a postseason, Jordan Montgomery is probably not going to get a start, even if it's a best of 7 game series. Jordan Montgomery is not going to get the ball in any of those 4 available slots. So it's almost like you don't really need him for the postseason. You kind of need him right now just to throw innings, but it's not someone you're going to be counting on in the postseason. So if you could get a piece like someone like Bader, who of course if obviously you're going to put him in there for late inning defense, especially in a tight ball game, or when you're trying to close the game out and you just can't have any balls dropping in the gap or anything like that. That's when the move makes sense. So for Montgomery, it's kind of a hard situation. Because I just think the fact that now Herman's back, there really wasn't any spots for him anymore. Obviously, you bring in Montas, so obviously you have Cole, Montas, Nestor, who you're not getting rid of, Jameson Taillon, who you traded assets for to bring in here, and you kind of been making him a starter. I know he's been a little sluggish lately, and of course now you have Herman back, so that's 5 right there. So really, there's no room for Monty, so you can understand why the Yankees kind of looking to deal him. And in terms of his trade value, Montgomery was also signed through next year, and then after that, he would hit free agency, so he's under control. So a team may want to take him because someone needs a starter for the rest of the season and next season, and St. Louis would probably be a team that would look for a deal like that. So very marketable that way. But for the Yankees, it's someone like you can get rid of because I guess with Herman, we've seen flashes of greatness from him. Of course, we go back to that season he had in 2019. He was 18-4 with an ERA just a little bit above 4, had 153 strikeouts and only 143 innings with only 39 walks. So that's an impressive season for Herman. I know that was 3 seasons ago, but we've seen some, him flirting with greatness there. As you look for Jordan Montgomery, this season right now, 6-7. At the time of the deal, his ERA was like 3.87. So, okay, not bad, but we never seen Jordan Montgomery has never had a double-digit win season for the New York Yankees. Now, some of that's because the lack of run support, some of that because the time he got hurt and needed Tommy John, but we never seen Montgomery being anywhere close to a 15 to 20 game winner. Now, this season, let's just say he stuck with the Yankees for the rest of August and September. Maybe he could have reached 10 wins, maybe, but we don't know that. We can't know. So we never seen him hit double-digit wins. We've definitely seen Herman hit double-digit wins. And again, as Herman has lost some time, of course, with the whole domestic dispute where he got suspended, and of course had an injury with his car flipped in there, and then of course dealing with the shoulder strain to begin this season. But when Herman's been in there, we've seen Herman have success of all-star caliber success. We never seen all-star caliber success out of Monty. So if there was only one spot in the rotation between Monty and Herman, you can understand why they decided to stick with Herman in that one, and then deal Monty, who, at least at this point for the Yankees, this is probably, again, in terms of trade value, the highest he'll ever be for Monty. So if they're looking to move him, now would be the time. So it makes sense that way. Now, as mentioned earlier in the program, Luis Severino is on the 68 DL. He's due back in September. Now, when things come in, we'll see what happens at that point. Does Sevy come in and now take Herman's spot? Or perhaps, Tyone, if he continues to struggle like he has been lately, does Tyone now lose his spot? He ended up getting relegated to the bullpen, maybe as a middle reliever, and then you have Sevy and Herman in the rotation. So a lot of different things could happen there. But again, if you can't have a 6-man rotation now, and you're not putting Montgomery as a long relief, and you could possibly put Herman as a long reliever, but I guess they just probably value that he probably has a higher ceiling right now, and his stuff is better, and we've seen him have more of success, again, at least in one season than Monty. So it just made sense they moved Monty there. So he goes in, and really it's a good situation for him. He's kind of always overshadowed here for the Yankees. And again, it's he came up through the Yankee system, and everyone kind of likes him. He's a good, durable guy. Now in his career for the Yankees, 23-20, and kind of similar ERA to the season, 3.90. But again, so a few games over 500, not terrible, not super great. But I think for St. Louis would be a good situation for him. Just as I mentioned before, over here he's just overshadowed by, you got names like Cole and Cortez, and now they're bringing Montas, and of course Tyone gets a lot of fanfare because he has 10+ wins this season, and Monty's kind of always lost in the shuffle a little bit. He could go down to St. Louis, kind of maybe build a new character for himself, and kind of be one of those boys down there. Maybe just be considered one of their better starters, where he is kind of considered maybe the little kid, the baby brother in the 4th and 5th starting spot. So it's a good place for Monty, good place to go down there. For a left-hander in Busch Stadium there, I think it'd be very well. So it's a good move for Monty. Now, what the Yankees are getting back in Bader, he's actually a New York native from Bronxville, grew up as a Yankee fan. You like that part. And again, once he's out, he is considered one of the best center fielders in the game. Now, last year has a little sneaky power in only 103 games, hit 16 home runs. And then in 2018 and 2019, again before the COVID season, hit 12 home runs those seasons respectively. So he could bop a home run once in a while. Could also steal a base here and there, which is something the Yankees need. Now you might say, hey, look, well, the Yankees already got a guy like that in Tim Castro. But I would say in all facets, even though Castro's a good, a utility player for the Yankees, good weapon off the bench. In all facets of the game, Harrison Bader is a little better than Castro there in that regard. And I think a lot of this move also has to do with the fact that, at some point, I know Judge likes playing center field, and maybe that's part of the reason why his numbers have been good. But I think once you get into September, and definitely in the postseason, the Yankees are much better off with Judge in right field. And if you have a superior defender like Bader in center field, that's just, a much better situation for the Yankees. And Aaron Hicks might just be a little bit of the odd man out a little bit, just because, again, he's fallen to one of his slumps, and he'll have a couple of good weeks, and he'll kind of fall back down. And of course, they brought in Benintendi, and Benintendi is a Gold Glove left fielder, so it's going to be Benintendi in left. Probably looking, hopefully, if things work the way they're doing, Bader to get back on the field. He'll be in center, and then you have Judge in left field, and of course, Stanton will be a DH. Again, Stanton kind of coming back from that Achilles injury. Again, that's probably the better situation where the Yankees are looking for the best defense possible there. And Benintendi, a Gold Glove defender himself, and Judge not too snabby there. So Gold Glove outfield there. So that's probably the long-term vision for the Yankees. And again, Aaron Hicks, he's kind of up and down a little bit, and I guess if he's not going to hit a little bit and he can't really play center field the way he did, it's kind of a little bit useless for the Yankees, especially in a postseason situation. You might as well have the best defense out there as possible. So now I look at the deal. I can't say it's good. I can't say it's bad. I just think at this point maybe it was unnecessary. I just don't think it was detrimental, to get Bader in here and move out Hicks, just for the fact that you just look since the All-Star break. I mean, again, Tyone's looks like he's been laboring a little bit. Even Garrett Cole, the ace, hasn't been that good. Now, I'm not worried about Cole a little bit, just because, he's proven track record, and he'll have little ups and downs a little bit. But you look at Tyone, it really looks like he's struggling a little bit right now. So I just don't know. He might be someone who maybe needs to breathe a little bit. So I just know if you're in a position to give away someone like Monty, who, okay, I understand he's not the most glamorous starter in the world, but he makes all his starts, doesn't really get hurt. He'll at least give you 5 or 6 innings, good quality innings like that. Again, he's not going to shut the other team down and go 7 or 8 innings. That's not Monty. But just right now, the fact that we've seen Cole laboring, we see Tyone laboring, and Nestor Cortez, for the most part, he's good like that. But again, it doesn't seem like he gives the Yankees much length, so it's always a situation where he's going to go maybe 5 2/3 innings, and you're going to need the bullpen. And Bingo Herman, all right, he's been getting better and better every start, but again, not much of a proven track record where you can say, all right, he's good, trade Monty. So I say it's an okay deal for the Yankees. I just don't think it was necessary at the time. And again, the fact that the guy they're getting back maybe is a great center fielder, but again, he's in a boot right now. He claims he'll be back before the year ends, but we don't know. And is he going to be the best center field of the game, or is his foot still going to be a little injured a little bit? Is he going to be a little haggard? Is he going to be 80% of himself, where you figure, that's not really worth trading Monty for? So, but Monty, again, was a good Yankee, and again, he'll be a free agent once 2024 comes around, and we'll see where things are. I mean, you can always sign him and bring him back if you really want him back, in pinstripes. So those were the players that were moved around. But what was interesting for the Yankees, are players who weren't moved, and mainly the one I want to focus on there would be Miguel Andujar, who, I recall, early this season requested a trade just for the fact that the Yankees kept sending him down to the minors, where he feels, hey, look, I've been down there enough, I'm ready to play now. And the times the Yankees brought him up here, whether it was like, between a doubleheader or something like that, was hitting for the Yankees, and he can understand his beef, just for the fact that, hey, look, Gallo was terrible and Hicks was terrible, and it's like, hey, I deserve some more playing time. The Yankees were going to give it to him, and he said, hey, look, if you're not going to use me finally, trade me somewhere else. But it looks like Cashman, wasn't able to involve him in any deals, and who knows if there was any takers for him. Again, at this point, he's more of a slasher, doubles type hitter, so it's not like a home run home run hitter that's going to attract a lot of attention. But I guess for whatever reason, Cashman wasn't able to move him in any deals. So I don't know if that means that maybe he's in the Yankees' future plans, or just for the fact that, again, no one really valued him and no one really wanted him. So again, Andujar is still a New York Yankee. And, even though the Yankees recently have brought him back as a starter, you figured Domingo Germán could be a name that could be packaged with someone for something. But it turns out that wasn't the case. So I guess whether it was the fact that Germán was coming back from a shoulder strain injury, that maybe other teams were weary of taking him on. So that might be beneficial for the Yankees. We don't know yet. But again, just interesting to see two pieces. Andujar and Germán are kind of up and down a little bit with the minors for different reasons. Weren't involved in any deals. And also, it's interesting for the Yankees, they didn't really make any moves in the catcher position. Obviously, Trevino is an all-star. You don't think that could be moved, but you can figure a situation. Maybe they look for an upgrade over Higgy. I know we have Ben Rovette still coming back from his knee injury, which seemed like taking forever. Maybe a chance we never see the guy, and we don't really know what he is. But he's one of the Yankees looking for a little upgrade there at the catcher position. But again, no trades to bring up any backup catcher. So again, moving for the rest of the season, it seems like it's going to be the Trevino and Higgy show. And of course, Cole throwing a little bit more to Trevino, because obviously Trevino's bat's been great. Compared to your average catcher, that is, an all-star. So when it comes to postseason time, Cole's going to be thrown to Trevino, not Higgy, just for the fact that Trevino could offer more with the bat there. But I guess Higgy, at least for the rest of the season, has some job security there. Again, he had a little spurt a couple weeks ago. He was hitting some home runs, but again, kind of been quiet overall, and just, up to the point where a lot of times almost an automatic out there. But I guess Cashman just doesn't want to mess with anything. Pitching staff's comfortable. They know the pitches and everything like that. So I guess this, doesn't make any sense to rock the boat in that regard. So overall, you would say a very good trade deadline for Brian Cashman. Addressed a lot of needs. Brought in a top-line starter in Frankie Montas. Also bolstered the bullpen with Lou Trevino, as well as Scott Efros. Much needed there for the Yankees. Ship out Joey Gallo, which that whole bad situation actually got a prospect back. So it kind of removed that whole situation from the Yankee clubhouse. And last but not least, of course, the Jordan Montgomery situation. Again, you kind of scratch your head a bit. Maybe not the great move from Cashman, but I don't think it bites him in the backside. But, now in a few weeks, we'll see how these moves pay off.